As I was saying, this is a meeting of the Sustainability and Environment Committee. We're joined, as I mentioned prior to the recording starting, by Councillor Davila, who's a member of the committee. We've just also been joined by the third member of the committee, Councillor Hurst. And I also know Councillor Gomez is with us, and the solicitor, Chris Signoli, and some guests. So as I was saying, I've called this meeting as the first of a series of meetings I intend to hold about the proposal by Eversource, which recently acquired Columbia Gas, and their reliability project, as they've termed it. And doing this in response to outreach from the community that we've received from individuals and ratepayers who are interested in understanding more about the proposal, as well as its impact on our environment here in the city of Springfield. So I have been in communication with Eversource. Eversource was not able to make it to today's meeting, but they have confirmed that they will join us on Thursday, October 14th at 2:30 p.m. So I'll be scheduling a subsequent meeting at that time to discuss Eversource's plans with them directly. However, since we already had confirmation from the solicitor and the director of DPW, I was hoping that we could spend some time today just understanding what local approvals would be in place for a project of this nature, and also to the degree that we know of them, what the state process would be for such a project. So it might make sense to start, solicitor, with you, just to share what you've found out thus far about what the process would be locally for this type of expansion, and what steps might need to be taken.
Sure, thank you. Happy to be here, and I will put on the calendar the 14th. You know what time that's going to be?
2:30 p.m. 2:30 p.m. on the 14th.
So I don't know anything of any details. All I know really is from talking to the ladies in the city council meeting office, excuse me, who had asked if I was available for this. I went online looking at the docket because those are public records. I didn't see anything filed with DPU, but Eversource, whatever they do, they're controlled by the Department of Public Utilities. But when they want to do something in our streets, they need to comply with our requirements and under the ordinances, and it requires that the DPW, or more particularly the Board of Public Works, gets involved, and then it then goes to your body, the City Council. That's my understanding of how any sort of process where somebody wants to put things through our streets or pipes in our road or wires across, whatever. That's the general requirement. So as I said, I searched the docket. I did not see any filings that would seem to refer to some sort of pipeline going through Springfield, or and I also put a call to the AG's office. I looked for the most recent docket filing, if you will, involving Eversource, and in particular their gas portion. And there's a rate case. That was the most rate. There's a rate case, and the Attorney General's office had filed a petition to intervene in that case. So, many times in a rate case, if the Attorney General is intervening, there can be side issues, if you will, that might be connected to rates somehow, that might be the subject of the hearing. Now, all the hearings at DPU are typically pre-prepared testimony. At least that's how they start, and then there's cross-examination. And so then again, that docket would provide a source of information as there's filings made, as to their petition, as to the experts they're using, as to the disclosures or whatever. And so that's what I was looking for. I have not had a call back from the Attorney General's office. I did not find anything, and I checked with Chris Signoli, and there has been no filings with the Board of Public Works. But generally, that is how I can be helpful, if you will, is trying to keep track of filings and documentation that might contain some information.
That makes sense, Solicitor. And, you know, in my conversations with Eversource, I think that's consistent. I mean, they haven't yet filed is what they've indicated. And we haven't heard exactly when they will file. Hopefully on the 14th, they can give us some more information. I think that's one of the issues is, you know, this was a proposal that started under Columbia Gas and then sort of came under Eversource when they acquired the assets. So, you know, we're just looking to, you know, figure out exactly what the proposal is, you know, as soon as possible so people can be informed and we can know on our end. But you're confident that ultimately there would be some level of local control over the project. You don't, could, for example, if the city had concerns, could those be overruled or intervened by the DPU or the EFSB? Do they have any sort of like special jurisdiction since it's a little bit beyond just like a normal, like normally the petitions that come before the city council are just for like repairs or sort of low level infrastructure improvements. Do you know if there's any type of difference in the application here since this would be considered like a larger project?
Don't know, but you know, but based on the filings, I could then do some research, but you know, I don't even know what they're filing at this point.
Right.
You know, I mean, it could be anything. I mean, I tried to take a look also on the internet for some prior information, and there was something about a pipeline going from Long Meadow through Forest Park. Now, I have no idea if that's the project they're planning or not, but for using that as an example, now they're going through parkland, and clearly we'd have more leverage, if you will, or say so as to what goes on there. There'd not only be city council, there'd also be park commission. There also would likely be potentially some legislative requirements. And so again, depending on what they're filing, let's assume, and it's some sort of pipeline, let's assume that there's going to have to be some sort of potential legislative involvement. You know, that certainly could end up in overriding some of the local. But again, I think the legislature would probably be sensitive to the same sort of issues that the local body would be looking at. So everything's a little up in the air. If you get any more information, and I would be happy to do more research.
Certainly, and before we move over to Chris, I see we're also joined now by Councillor Tracy Whitfield. So Councillor, thank you very much for joining us. And just to quickly bring you up to speed, we're just discussing what local authority and approvals would be needed relative to this proposed project by Eversource. And the solicitors confirmed that there would need to be city council approval, DPW approval, and it sounds like there would be a significant level of local process involved. Chris, can you speak a little bit to this from your end and any conversations that you're aware of thus far?
Yeah, with regard to Columbia Gas, sometime between now and definitely before that 14th is they're going to be making their filing with the state. When they make their filing with the state, a couple things are required. Number one, they are required to have a public hearing. And the project affects both us and Long Meadow. So they will be required to set up public hearings in both communities. No idea where or how that will occur at this point, but my guess is that it will occur sometime in or around the meeting date that you have set up, Councillor. Once that happens, they then start to get into the actual design of what they are proposing. Once the design is complete is when it comes to the Board of Public Works. We then do an engineering review because we get into wherever they're putting in long stretches of pipeline, impact to roadways, impact to other utilities, impacts to driveways, sidewalks, yada, 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 as far as other impacts. We then do our review, an engineering review on that, and then it would get submitted to the Board of Public Works. So on a project of this scale, I would think that we are months away from going through the Public Works standpoint. And the bigger thing, as I said, is that there would be a public hearing set up by Eversource. No idea at this point how that would be facilitated, whether it be a public meeting. My preference is that it's a public meeting versus a Zoom thing, but that hasn't been discussed at this point. So once they have their filing done, that information, they can then turn around and schedule the public hearing. There's a statutory requirement as far as posting the meeting and number of days, and I'm just not aware of that from the state level, but I would guess somewhere late of October, we would be having a large-scale public hearing on the project through Eversource.
Chris, for that hearing now, the DPU requires that hearing, but does
Yes.
Eversource run that hearing themselves, or does the DPU run that hearing?
I believe Eversource runs it. They are required to conduct the public hearing, and they have to have stenographers and recordings and all of that stuff, but it is run by Eversource.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, because I think one of the things we would probably want to see, especially since it sounds like it goes through the DPU before coming really to the Board of Public Works and the City Council, is we probably want the DPU to hold one of their hearings here in Springfield at least.
And I'm just not familiar with their process on that, but as far as I know, it's just a Eversource running the public hearing here.
Sure, and we can reach out to the DPU.
Yeah,
and maybe, well, the solicitor, it sounds like, has already reached out to the DPU, so we'll probably have some more information by the 14th on that particular aspect. But I think this. And I would just to interrupt for 1 second. I would anticipate, based on my conversations, that at that point on the 14th.
The information that is being submitted is all public, and obviously our meeting on the 14th, Eversource will have, 100% of the detail that they're proposing for our meeting.
Yeah, and I will say, in fairness, they've agreed to that meeting, and they, sure that they will be coming with more detail. I think, one of the, I won't profess to speak for them, but one of their concerns about this date was that they felt they didn't have the details prepared yet. So, we want to get as much information as possible as we figure out the local side. So this pretty much answers my questions. I just wanted to get a firmer understanding of what local authority we would have as a city council and a board of public works over the project. And it sounds like there will be significant involvement. I know we have Councillor Davila, Councillor Hurst, Councillor Whitfield, and Councillor Gomez here. Did you have any questions for the solicitor or for Chris on this?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Chris, so basically, if I understood correctly, the process will be similar to that of the X project, correct?
It's kind of, and the reason why I say kind of is once they get through the approval processes at the state level and local level, assuming everything goes okay, runs a lot quicker than it does on a Mass DOT project. Mass DOT projects take 3 years before we start construction. These processes on these bigger projects, usually only take a year or so to get through. So, they would want to get into construction as quickly as possible.
Excellent, Chris. Now, Mr. Chair, I do believe I heard the 14th a couple of times, and I got kicked out of the Zoom call. So what's happening on the 14th?
Yes, so Eversource has agreed to join a committee meeting on the 14th at 2:30, which I'll be asking our staff to schedule very soon. So they will actually be with us on the 14th to get into more details about their proposal. They've indicated they'll have more details at that time.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
that they will share with us.
October 14th, correct?
October 14th, yes, sir.
Very well. So that I'm clear, nothing has been submitted, and the bid you're going to be presenting to us on the 14th. Okay. Now, question, Chris. Part of the problem here is like there's, from my understanding, I've been hearing about this for a good 2 years now. My understanding is that there would be some piping going through actually Forest Park to the actual park. Isn't that wetland protection protected? If that's the case,
they as part of their submission to the state, they have to present a number of options to get from point A to point B.
yeah.
So with all of those options, and that's the kind of the difficulty we're in right now, because we haven't seen their pluses and minuses yet. But you know, going through Forest Park, you have issues with it being parkland. You have issues with wetlands. You have issues with other utilities.
Right.
So it, you know, it has always been our, as a city, I would probably say our non-preferred route as far as the city is concerned, because it would be much more impactful to the park. However, when the, as I said, when the application is submitted, there will be a number of options, like any other study or submission that says that we've looked at these 3 or 4 and this is our preferred.
Very well, very well.
Yeah.
Chris, when does happen, if you could kindly keep the local association aware, because this directly impacts the heart of Forest Park, the district.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Davila. Chris, on that note, if this goes through the Board of Public Works, what type of assessments are being conducted by your department? And in other words, sort of what are you looking at for criteria with regard to, you know, your approval or disapproval of the project?
We do not get into issues related to a gas main, you know, things like that. That is handled 100% at the state level. We are 100% concerned about constructability, impact of constructability, impact to other utilities, impact to residents, impacts to roadways, schedule, how long it's going to take, what else it's going to impact, how long it's going to take from point A to point B, you know, how long are roadways torn up, how long is their impact, that sort of thing, where, and just to kind of extrapolate it out a little bit, if we have a project, sometimes with some of these companies that take 2 years, I don't want to wait 2 years to have full roadways restored. So that's the interest that we really get into from the city side of it. We do not get into, you know, discussing welding operations on pipes. We do not, you know, they have to meet standards on that has to be inspected in the field. We look at it from a constructability, impact to the city, impact to residents, impact to roadways.
Okay. What about, you know, to Councilor Davila's point on the environmental aspects? Do we conduct any sort of environmental assessments?
Any of their potential routes that they would go, and if it becomes a proposed route, they then have to do the exact same thing that any other major, if it were a roadway project or a building project, if they would be impacting wetlands, then all of a sudden they got to go through wetland processes. Some of them, depending upon where they are, may be just local, maybe state controlled, maybe FEMA, maybe DEP. And that's all dependent upon the route that they end up picking. If, you know, if they were to try to go through, you know, as an example, through Forest Park, it would be a lot more impactful and a lot more control at different levels, especially DEP, wetlands, things like that.
Thank you, Chris. Councilor Whitfield and then Councilor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, what is the purpose of this pipe? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit late. I don't know if I missed that. What's the purpose of the pipe running through Springfield? And is there any other routes that they can take to put a pipe into Long Meadow?
For us old people, if some of you remember in the old days down, I think where the old Hall of Fame is located now, it used to be Springfield Gas Works. Springfield Gas Works actually manufactured gas. Eddie, you're 100 years old. I think it started in like the 20s and actually went up through like the mid 50s or 60s. And in the Springfield area, when gas was manufactured, that's how the piping system began and stretched out through the city of Springfield and then stretched out through other communities. Over time, obviously, that manufacturing has gone away. They now have, it's a natural gas system that they use. However, the general piping system that they have that goes out to Springfield and its suburbs, excuse me, a lot of that piping is still used. And when I say the piping, not necessarily the pipes itself, but the roots on that. The roots that go out to Long Meadow right now are basically fingers that go out and end. And this project, the problems that they've been running into over time in other communities is during extremely cold weather and extremely high demand weather, they have issues with pushing gas through these pipe systems that just go to dead ends. So what they are looking to do is kind of in general, it's not as this simple, but connect the ends of those pipes, loop it back into the city of Springfield so that certain areas of the city of Springfield, certain areas of Long Meadow then have the reliability to be able to get gas throughout the year as they need it. So it's really been a reliability project for certain areas of Long Meadow and Springfield. So that's kind of been the general thing. This project in a different scale was presented to the town of Long Meadow probably 4 or 5 years ago. And it was presented by Columbia Gas. And it was I believe it was pre-submittal to the state at that time. And they really didn't have a lot of information with that. So really what they're trying to do is connect, be able to provide a lot better service to certain areas of primarily Long Meadow, but the loop has to be completed in the city of Springfield.
Thank you. Do we know how many households are impacted by this piping system in Springfield?
I don't know. I don't know. It is not a lot. It is not a lot, if any. The majority of the project is to serve Long Meadow, but also at the same time to provide needed redundancy when needed in the city of Springfield.
And my second question to you was, is there any other route that can be taken to get to Long Meadow?
Well, the only routes that are available are Route 5, Route 91 East, because the location is that they have to get back to is on West Columbus Avenue. So wherever they are coming through from Long Meadow, they are, drawing a bunch of lines on the piece of paper to get from point A to point B. So at some point they have to come back through the city, and they're trying to find the easiest, shortest, least impactful, and all three of those sometimes don't work together, but the shortest, least impactful way to get from point A to point B. And it is mostly on the central west side of Long Meadow. So we are not dealing with coming through, say, Dwight Road area, places like that. It is mostly closer to the river.
Okay, and so just for a comment, I don't know how comfortable I feel with the project because of the, fossil fuel emissions and things like that. And also, I don't know how comfortable I feel because they owe us millions of dollars in tax revenue. And so we need to come to some type of agreement for the safety of our community and see if there's other ways that they can implement a system that's better for the town of Long Meadow. It'd probably be more costly, but I think that's something that they're gonna have to figure out. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Whitfield. And I'm not sure if you were on, but when we mentioned this, but we will have Eversource here next month to present more specifically about their plans. So far, they haven't submitted anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch a recording. I'll be traveling that day, Councillor, but I really wish I could be here. Do you know if it'll be in the daytime like this?
It'll be at 2:30.
30? I might be able to get on because I leave about 3:30, I'm thinking. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely have it recorded, and we'll have additional meetings with them. And also we'll be asking for the DPU to come out here as well. Councillor Davila.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just piggybacking off that, I will kindly, before I ask my questions, kindly recommend to the chair that it is great that they're coming, Eversource is coming October 14th to give us, to give a more concrete and what this canvas is going to look like and this project is going to look like. But I kindly suggest, Mr. Chair, that perhaps down the road, we could have a committee of the whole meeting with Eversource so that they can bring everybody up to speed. I'm sure many of our colleagues are going to have tons of questions. This is it is a major project, and I think it will be beneficial for the entire body to hear a presentation from Eversource. Solicitor, a quick question for you, sir. Regarding the $44 million that they owe us, does that play a role at all in the permitting process? Will the state consider that?
I don't understand.
I'm just wondering, $4 million that is currently owed to the city of Springfield by Eversource, does the state take that into consideration moving forward with the permitting process?
Well, first, this is a gas project. The taxes they owe is on the electric utility side for the.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But
even though
in rate cases, that does play a role. In a reliability case, I don't know. I think the person that would know would be the Attorney General's office. And again, the opportunities for the city to actually intervene in a DPU case are few and far between. We just don't have the capacity to intervene in DPU cases on any sort of regular basis.
Right.
But as I said, we do communicate with the AG's office because they're representing the people in these types, and so that's why I'm looking for a contact. But until there's a filing, we really won't have anything. Once there's a docket filed, you'll see someone appear from the AG's office, and that contact information will be valuable so that people can have their input into what the issues of interest are at the local level.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Solicitor. Chris, quick question. I just want to follow up and make sure that I heard you correctly, sir. Did you say that this project is not going to impact a lot of residents, and this is to service Long Meadow and, if needed, Springfield? Did I hear you? Is that correct, sir?
Basically what they're attempting to do is create better reliability for primarily the customers in Long Meadow, because that's where they have the major problems, and the pipe system, in order to create that, must go through the city. I do not know, based upon their routing, how much I don't want to use the word benefit, but what the benefit is particularly to the residents of the city of Springfield, other than providing more reliability in their systems. From what we understand, this is a standalone pipe system that allows the entire system for better flow and better reliability for everybody.
Right.
Primarily Long Meadow at this point.
And I don't know if you might be the right person to address this question, but if that's the case, the first thing that came to my mind is that they will not throw the pipe into Long Meadow.
Oh, they are. There's probably 90% of the work that's going to be happening is in Long Meadow.
It's in Long Meadow.
It's in Long Meadow, yes.
All right.
In order just to complete the loop, they have to come through a section of the city to do it. So their majority of, I don't want to say pain, but the pain that they're going to be going through the processes and the impacts are going to be much more from a construction standpoint on the Long Meadow side.
All right, and my final question, Chris, do you happen to know exactly how many people specifically in Forest Park heat with gas or cook with gas? How much?
I don't know. I know I do.
I know.
And I know my section up off of Dwight Road is, I want to say it's probably 90% in that section of gas down in the Dwight Road area, my section off of Tiffany and that. And in general, where they have gas mains, they are probably at least 75%. They have a better number, but I know it's a big percentage.
Right. Okay. And just last, Mr. Chairman, last question. Regarding to if this is going to come through my district of Forest Park, my understanding it might possibly come Long Hill, Sumner Avenue, and we got 17,000 cars plus a day coming through. Will there be some sort of a traffic study, or how are we going to mitigate that?
Yeah, that's primarily what we will do as part of our plan review is, where it's going to be in the street, what's the traffic impact. If you're on, pick any street that you want. If you're on that street, where are you in the street? Are you close to the curb? Are you on the center line? How long are you going to be there? What's the roadway impact? What's people able to get in and out of their driveways? All that stuff that we look at to be able to figure that out. City of Springfield is always a difficult place because underground there is a ton of stuff, and trying to find alleys to put some of these things are always difficult.
Because in my mind, I'm also thinking, how is that going to possibly collide with the X project, which is, I know it's in the back burner, but so we got another huge project coming in Forest Park.
And we've given them our opinion on that as well, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Davila. And I would just say, for the record, I think that the critical piece will really be the 14th to see what Eversource has to say. I mean, this will be, I think, the first time that they publicly discuss the details of the route and go into more detail on the project in general. But I will say that my understanding of the project thus far is slightly different from Chris's, in that it hasn't really been said to me by anybody that this will increase service to any customers, but it's more so just about building redundancy into the system. So I think that's something we need to consider. It's not so much that there's a shortage of gas delivery either in Springfield or Long Meadow. It's that, this is just what I've understood about the project thus far, is that they see it as a reliability in the form of redundancy, which I think allows us to consider it in a bit of a different light than if it was looking to increase service. So from the cost perspective and the cost benefit analysis. So I think that we have most of the local process understood here today. I appreciate the solicitor and Chris being here. Solicitor, one thing I'd ask you to look into before the 14th, if you could, is I know that, since the last time that something like this occurred, the state has passed a pretty significant environmental justice law, which this body certainly supported, which grants some additional protections for cities like Springfield when these types of projects are proposed. And I would just be curious about how this particular process at the state level might interact with those requirements. I can send you the bill itself that passed, I think, 2 years ago. So it'd be helpful for us perhaps to understand that as well.
That'd be very helpful. Any information you could send that you have on the project, you know, as I do some research, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, solicitor. If there's no other questions from councilors, then we will move towards adjourning this meeting, and we will get the meeting for the 14th scheduled very shortly through our staff, and look forward to reconvening at that time. So this is last call for any questions for Chris or the solicitor, and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Councillor Hurst. Councillor Davila, could we get a proper second? All right. Well, motion.
You're muted, Councillor. I think I seen his lips move.
All right, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it as a second. I'm gonna take it as a second, and with all those being in favor, we will now adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.